Y'all know I try to make it quick, like when I, you know what I'm saying, when I try to return from ad breaks and stuff like this. But yeah, we here now. The ancient African timeline, you know, changed. Yeah, History Store. History Store. Interesting channel name. That's the first time we bump into the, that's, you know, that's ever since switched things up and went from psychology reaction to history reaction. Let's see how that turns out, right? And yes, the elephant in the room, man. I got these shades on. I don't want to, you know what I'm saying? It's not for looking cool, trust me. It is not for looking cool, ladies and gentlemen. I just got my, oh man, you know what I'm saying? My little diagnosis, bro. It's been a minute. I didn't think, you know, this demon would creep up on me, but yes, my migraine condition, ladies and gentlemen, and it's all triggered by some sinusitis effect. You know what I'm saying? Some sinusitis infection, you feel what I'm saying? And so whenever the pain starts, just the lights, I cannot bear it. You know what I'm saying? I have to stop stream there and there. You know what I'm saying? It's like I cannot continue to stream, so they affect me so bad. I was like, I did take a little bit of my treatment this morning. I explained this you know, during the earliest segments, but I was like, yo, let me assist all that with these shades, you know what I'm saying, just to minimize just the brightness that might sensitize the whole little janky situation that I got going on now. But we are here saying zoom ancient time Africa before colonization, I would say, what I'm saying. But go ahead and comment something.
While Rome rose, Africa already forged iron, built empires, and sailed trade routes from the Sahara to India. During the same
From the Sahara to India, what were they doing in India? Right? Good question, right?
centuries that the Roman Empire expanded its influence across Europe and the Mediterranean, Africa was no silent spectator. From the dense forests of West Africa to the rocky highlands of Ethiopia, from the vast desert trade routes of Libya to the bustling ports of the Red Sea, African civilizations were not only active,
What were
they were thriving. These were not isolated cultures, but
you know, take into consideration, bro. You know, in this video, we are only zoomed, you know, ancient Kemet, right? Let me just find something out from Copilot right quick. Copilot, so ever since, you know, during the thriving of ancient Kemet, right, what other African civilizations were on the same level of thriving and success throughout Africa?
Alongside ancient Egypt or Kemet, there were indeed other thriving African civilizations. For example, the Kingdom of Kush, which we mentioned, flourished for centuries and was a major power. Additionally, the Kingdom of Axum and the later West African empires like Mali and Ghana also achieved significant success.
What was going on in the south during the same time period? What, like in the south of Africa?
In the southern regions of Africa during that same time period, societies were mostly organized into smaller communities and chiefdoms. Larger kingdoms like Mapungubwe emerged around the 11th century, but during the earlier era of ancient Egypt, most southern African communities were still more localized and not yet centralized kingdoms.
So what governed those localized people?
They were generally governed by local chieftaincies or smaller clan-based authorities. Each of these communities had their own leadership structures and social norms, which allowed them to manage their resources and resolve conflict at a local level.
Name 5 of those clans.
Some well-known historical groups from the southern African region include the Zulu, Xhosa, Sotho, Tswana, and Ndebele clans. These are some of the communities that had distinct leadership and cultural structures in the region.
When did those clans just like originate? Like when did they begin? When was the inception of those clans?
Many of these clans trace their origins back many centuries, often through oral traditions. For instance, the Zulu and Xhosa, as part of the larger Nguni migration, have histories that go back about 1,000 years. They solidified into recognizable groups and chiefdoms around the early second millennium.
Alright, brother.
Expansive networks of innovation, diplomacy, and commerce. They forged metal, crafted art, irrigated deserts, and built cities that rivaled any in the classical world.
True.
And yet, much of their legacy has been buried beneath the sands of time, or deliberately left out of global history. One of the most formidable powers of this era was Carthage, a Phoenician African empire that dominated North Africa and much of the Western Mediterranean. Founded around the 9th century BCE in present-day Tunisia, Carthage evolved into a maritime superpower, rivaling Rome itself. Carthaginian ships ruled the seas, and their traders ventured as far as the British Isles and West Africa. At the heart of Carthage's success was its control of trade. Gold, ivory, textiles, glass, and spices moved through its harbors, connecting Africa to Europe and Asia long before colonialism. But Carthage was more than a merchant hub. It was a center of political strategy, religious tradition, and military genius. Hannibal, one of history's greatest generals, famous...
But wait, for them to control America, that kind of dominant, they had to some sort of what, military muscle?
crossed the Alps with elephants to attack Rome.
Elephants.
Not as a barbarian, but as a commander of a highly organized African empire. Carthage stood as a symbol of African intelligence, ambition, and resistance, until Rome destroyed it in 146 BCE, burning its libraries and salting its fields to erase its memory. While Carthage ruled the coasts, deep inland in what is now Nigeria, a mysterious and remarkably advanced culture emerged, the Nok civilization. Existing from around 1000 BCE to 300 CE, the Nok people are among the earliest known in sub-Saharan Africa to work with iron. Long before the Iron Age swept across Europe, Nok blacksmiths were smelting iron ore to create tools, weapons.
So bro, things like, okay, so they were creating tools and weapons and things like that, but then, you know what I'm saying, oh god, like, because guns and weapons like that are made with iron, right? Like metal and shit like that. How did they not have the idea to just develop those before, you know, colonizers came? Clearly it was, you know, a play of dominant military strength. These guys were like, what were they crafting? Like swords and things like that? Why didn't they, you know, craft the guns and shit?
And farming implements. This technological leap revolutionized their society, enabling agricultural surpluses, urban growth, and political organization. But what makes the Nok even more astonishing is the art. Their terracotta sculptures, expressive, detailed, and abstract, reveal a rich cultural and spiritual life.
Seriously.
These were not primitive people. They were artisans, thinkers, and innovators, setting the stage for later West African civilizations like Ife and Benin. Their cities, now lost to time and erosion, were early centers of African metallurgy and culture. To the north, across the expanse of the Sahara, rose another civilization that defies the desert's reputation for desolation. The Garamantes. Based in what is now Libya, the Garamantes
Libya. Garamante
established a powerful desert kingdom from around 500 BCE.
Garamante. So from Garamante to Libya, like who made that transformation? You know what I'm saying? Yo, co-pilot, so before the transformation of Libya getting, you know, being coined Libya, they were first known as Garamante, right? So who determined that transformation?
The Garamantes were an ancient civilization in what is now modern Libya. Over time, as different empires and cultures influenced the region, like the Romans and later Arab conquests, the identity and name of the area evolved into what we now call Libya.
Is it because of colonization?
The transformation of the region that was once home to the Garamantes into what we now know as Libya was indeed influenced by various waves of colonization and external rule. This includes Roman influence in ancient times, and much later, during the 20th century, European colonization. All these historical layers helped shape the modern identity of Libya.
Beautiful.
To 700 CE. At first glance, the Sahara may seem like an impenetrable barrier, but the Garamantes turned it into a highway.
Beautiful.
They developed advanced underground irrigation systems known as fogaras, tapping deep aquifers to transform dry landscapes into fertile farmland. With this innovation, they built cities, cultivated crops, and supported a growing population. The Garamantes became skilled desert navigators, controlling critical trade routes that connected West Africa with the Mediterranean. They dealt in gold, salt, and enslaved people. Though it is crucial to note that African systems of servitude during this era differed significantly from the industrialized chattel slavery imposed by Europeans centuries later. Roman records describe the Garamantes as fierce and independent, conducting raids deep into Roman North Africa while maintaining a strong and stable society of their own. Meanwhile, to the east, the Aksumite Empire was rising to prominence in the Horn of Africa.
Aksumite.
Centered in present-day Ethiopia and Eritrea, Aksum became one of the most powerful kingdoms in the world between the 1st and 7th centuries CE. It was a land of monumental obelisks, royal palaces, and sprawling trade networks. Aksum's strategic position allowed it to control the Red Sea trade, linking Africa with the Roman Empire, the Persian Gulf, and India. Goods like ivory, incense, spices, and textiles flowed through its ports.
Yeah.
But Aksum's significance wasn't just economic, it was also spiritual. In the 4th century CE, under King Ezana, Aksum adopted Christianity, making it one of the first officially Christian nations in the world.
Oh, for real?
This was not a borrowed faith. It was uniquely
The first official Christian.
Ethiopian traditions and connected to the broader Semitic and African religious worlds.
But who brought the Christianity there, right?
Monasteries were hidden in mountains, and Christianity took root in the Ethiopian highlands, where it would endure for millennia, untouched by Roman collapse or Islamic conquest. Further south along the Nile, the legacy of Kush continued in its later phase through the city of Meroe. As the capital of the Kushite kingdom from around 600 BCE to 300 CE, Meroe represented a fusion of African innovation.
Alright, hold on, let me find something off from my book pilot real quick. In 300 CE, right? 300 BCE. Yo, co-pilot, so during the times of 300 BCE, and yeah, well, what kingdom was the most powerful, bro?
In 300 BCE, one of the most powerful kingdoms was the Maurya Empire in South Asia. It was a dominant force in the Indian subcontinent during that time.
Okay, the most powerful kingdom in Africa?
In Africa around that time, ancient Egypt was one of the most powerful and influential kingdoms. It had a long-established civilization with significant cultural and political influence during that period.
What, the kingdom of Kush? Or Aksum?
Yes.
Aksum.
Yes, exactly. The kingdom of Aksum was another dominant power in northeastern Africa.
Wait. Was it the kingdom of Kush or the kingdom of Aksum that was the most powerful in ancient Africa? 300 CE.
In 300 CE, the kingdom of Aksum was more prominent in northeastern Africa. It had grown in influence and power, especially after the decline of the kingdom of Kush.
Earlier Kushite rulers had dominated Egypt and built in his style, Meroye developed a unique African identity. Its art, writing, and religion reflected indigenous beliefs while still revering the legacy of the Black Pharaohs. Meroye's iron smelting industry became one of the most productive in the ancient world, with vast fields of slag and remnants of furnaces, testifying to a booming economy.
So that's what was most valuable about their market. It's the metal.
Its pyramids,
the Iron
though
Age,
smaller than those of Giza, were more numerous.
That's what they were considering the Iron Age.
Merowe was also a center of learning and literacy, with the still undeciphered Meroitic script etched into stone and pottery. This was a city of scholars and engineers, not just warriors. Throughout this classical period, Africa was not a passive participant in world history.
Seriously?
It was shaping it. These civilizations, Carthage, Nok, Garamantes, Aksum, and Meroye, each contributed to the global story of innovation, faith, governance, and commerce. They developed independently, but they also interacted, traded, and influenced one another.
Nice.
The trans-Saharan trade routes weren't just paths for goods. They were channels of ideas, technologies, and belief systems. Yet, in most global histories, these names are rarely mentioned.
That's what I'm saying.
Textbooks jump from Egypt to Greece, from Rome to Europe's Dark Ages.
I feel like it was just like, you know, the agenda of putting all, like, every narrative was about just one. It was concentrating into one religion. One, you know what I'm saying? I feel like that was the initial world order, when, you know, one religion becoming dominant over others. Okay, since the Roman times, like Christianity and those. No, correct me if I'm wrong, bro. Nigga.
Centers that were still illuminated by knowledge, wealth, and power. They tell us that Africa was in slumber, when in truth it was in motion.
In truth.
While Rome rose, Africa already forged iron.
Yeah.
While emperors debated theology, Aksum had already embraced Christianity. While Europe clung to coastal trade, Carthaginian ships and Garamantic caravans had already mapped the ancient world. To remember this era is not to rewrite history, it is to restore it. It is to acknowledge that Africa was never silent, never empty, never lost. It was.
I love the fact that you're pointing that out, because you know, for the most part, bro, for, you know, how Africa has developed to what it has become in modern day, bro, it has, like, to me, it has become valueless, bro. Like, people don't value it as much. Even the people in Africa, if y'all guys like lived in Africa, like, y'all would see this, bro. A whole lot of respect for Africa has gone out the window, even by the Africans, even just like, you know, upholding those values. A whole bunch of Africa has been westernized, you know what I'm saying? A whole bunch of African systems and things that were put in place just to remind people of their African history and heritage, bro. It's like, it's, you know, it's thrown out the window for the most part. You feel what I'm saying? So, you know, pointing out realities where, yo, it was rich in whatever was originated by them. Like that, yeah, like, people need to hear more of that, bro. So that probably the value of it can come back. See the potential that we then had, bro.
Mali, Songhai, and Kanem Bornu were among the most powerful and sophisticated polities in the world during their time. And they thrived for centuries. The Ghana Empire, known to its people as Wagadu, was the first of these giants. By the 8th century CE, it had already established itself as the uncontested land of gold.
Seriously?
Positioned strategically between the gold fields of Bambouk and the salt mines of the Sahara, Ghana controlled the trans-Saharan trade with such precision that nothing passed through its borders without royal permission. Camel caravans from North Africa would arrive loaded with salt textiles, and horses, and leave carrying gold, ivory, and enslaved persons. This wasn't a chaotic exchange.
Oh, say that again.
Textiles and horses, and leave carrying gold, ivory, and enslaved persons. This wasn't a chaotic exchange. It was highly regulated by a centralized authority with a royal court, taxation systems.
Psychology of, of previous civilizations is just right? Because to have regulated this is to have normalized this, obviously, and right? Obviously this was, but like fast forward that to right now. How modern time. And the transformation of can get pretty extreme. Like, where are we headed? That's the next realist question you could ask, right?
To sovereign control. But as trade routes shifted and internal pressures mounted, Ouagadougou's influence waned. From its ashes rose one of the most legendary empires in world history, Mali. Founded in the early 13th century by the brilliant warrior king Sundiata Keita, Mali quickly expanded its territory and influence, absorbing former Ghanaian lands and uniting diverse peoples under one banner.
Yeah.
But it was under Mansa Musa in the 14th century that Mali ascended into global renown. Mansa Musa's pilgrimage to Mecca in 1324 remains one of the most iconic moments in African history.
Yep.
Accompanied by tens of thousands of attendants and camels carrying hundreds of kilograms of gold, he distributed so much wealth along the way that he disrupted the economies of cities like Cairo for years. But Mansa Musa was not just a symbol of opulence. He was a patron of education, architecture, and diplomacy.
Beautiful. I think we might just get into some
Scholars studied theology, astronomy, law, mathematics, and medicine. Thousands of manuscripts were produced and preserved, creating one of the richest literary traditions in Africa. Timbuktu was not just a city, it was a symbol of what Africa could be at its intellectual peak, of what was lost when these empires fell, and of what survives in the dusty libraries that still house ancient African wisdom.
Bro, and I find myself, the more, the older I grow, bro, I find myself asking myself, where would African intelligence be by this point? You know what I'm saying? It would literally be at a point where it's just just highly sharpened, highly, if applied, might help the tap in with the universe. I don't mean to be fake, but come on, bro, each and every human being is trying to advance, beyond what they are, bro. And I feel like the African version of that. Yes, we have, Eastern ideas of how you can become your highest, your, most powerful self, most advanced self, whatever. You know what I'm saying? We got the Western, version of that. That's more materialistic. That's more achieving, African version of the shit. And I find myself wondering about the potential of how shit would have been, or where it would have stood had it not been stolen by powers that be and shit like that. Hold on.
Ensured stability and revenue.
Yep.
Songhai maintained Timbuktu's scholarly legacy and expanded it, making it a beacon for students and merchants from across the Muslim world. To the northeast, on the edge of Lake Chad,
whoa. Say that shit again, please, brother.
Scholarly legacy